Okay, let's jump right in. When someone moves to a new country, what do we call them? We've got these two common words, expat and immigrant. They seem pretty straightforward, right? But as we're about to see, the choice between them, well, it tells this whole hidden story about power and how we see the world.
So, which is it? Expat or immigrant? Which one pops into your head first? Seriously, think about it. Because the label we pick, a lot of the time without even realizing it, can actually shine a light on our own hidden biases. All right, let's look at a real head-scratcher. Picture this. You've got a tech worker from, say, the US, who moved to Nairobi, Kenya for a 2-year contract. What do we call them? An expat. Easy. Now, flip it. A tech worker from Kenya moves to Toronto, Canada. Same 2-year contract, same kind of job, but we call them an immigrant. Hold on. It's the exact same situation, right? The same work. So what's going on here? Why the completely different labels?
All right, to get to the bottom of this, the first logical place to look is the dictionary, right? Let's see what these words are supposed to mean.
So, according to the official definition, an immigrant is someone who moves to a new country with the plan to settle there, for good, or at least for a really long time. The key idea here is permanence. They're putting down roots. Okay, and an expatriate, or expat for short, is kind of the opposite. There's someone living in another country, but usually just for a little while. They're not necessarily planning to stay forever. The word literally comes from Latin for out of the fatherland, which pretty much sums it up.
So if we put it all together, it looks pretty neat and tidy on paper. It's all about your intention. Immigrants, they're there to stay, to become part of the community. Expats, they're just passing through, usually for a job or a bit of adventure. Seems super clear, doesn't it? Well, not so fast.
Yeah, because if it were really that simple, our tech worker puzzle from the beginning wouldn't even be a puzzle. So let's start peeling back the layers here and find out what's really going on. It's time to talk about the unspoken rules.
And here it is, the big twist. The label you get often has absolutely nothing to do with your visa status or your long-term plans. Nope. It's almost all about perception, how other people see you.
A little history lesson helps here. The word immigrant shows up way back in the 1580s. But then, pretty quickly, we get the word settler, which has everything to do with colonization. And then, expatriate enters the scene. See, these words didn't just pop up out of nowhere. They were created for a reason, to draw lines in the sand, to separate different kinds of people.
And this is a perfect example of that power dynamic in action. Think about it. European colonizers were, by definition, immigrants, but they were never called that. They were called settlers. And why does that matter? Well, settler makes it sound like you own the place, like you're in charge. Immigrant makes it sound like you're the new person who has to fit in. The language itself was designed to create a power structure right from the start.
Okay, so what are the unspoken rules today? It really comes down to a few things: race, class, and where you're from. The word expat is almost exclusively used for white, skilled professionals from Western countries. It's basically a code word for privilege. And immigrant? That's the label we tend to use for people coming from the global south, suggesting they're moving because they have to, not because they want to.
And once you see it everywhere, especially in the media. A headline might say, "American expat in Paris." This sounds so chic, right? Adventurous, cultured. But then another headline says, "Filipino immigrant in Canada." That story is framed totally differently. It's usually about struggle, hard work, trying to fit in. It's the exact same act, moving to a new country, but the words we use attach completely different values to it.
And look, this isn't just about being picky with words. This is way more than just semantics. These labels have real, actual consequences that can change the course of someone's life.
So how does it play out in the real world? Well, if you're an expat, you might get a smoother path to getting a visa, or maybe your company sets you up with nice housing. The media stories we just talked about shape how the public sees you. It creates this hierarchy where one person's move is celebrated and another's is seen as a problem. It can literally affect your ability to get a job or find a place to live. These words don't just describe reality, they help create it. And this really breaks it down visually. You can see the word expat is loaded with positive ideas: choice, privilege, adventure. And then you have immigrant, which gets stuck with words like necessity, struggle, and adaptation. It's a crystal clear hierarchy in our language, and it perfectly mirrors the real-world inequalities of race and wealth.
Okay, I know this all sounds a little depressing, but it's not the end of the story. Not at all. Because here's the thing about these labels. They're just social constructs. We made them up. And that means we have the power to change them.
So that leads to the big question, right? What can we actually do about it? How do we fight back against something that seems so baked into the way we talk? Well, the first step is remembering one simple thing. Language isn't permanent. It's negotiable. The meanings of words change all the time, based on how we, the people, use them. The power these words have, we gave it to them. And that means we can also take it away. And what that means for you, for me, for anyone, is that choosing your own label is an incredibly powerful act. When you decide what you want to be called, when you reclaim a word or just pick one that feels true to you, you're not just defining yourself. You're pushing back against that biased system. It's a small, quiet act of resistance, but it's huge.
So how do you do it? Here are a few simple ideas. First, just own your story. Use the word that feels right to you. Second, be consistent with it. Use it in your online profiles, when you talk to friends. Third, if someone calls you something you don't identify with, it's okay to politely correct them, maybe even explain why. And finally, find your people. Connecting with others who are also challenging these norms, well, that makes everyone's voice that much louder.
And that brings us to this final thought, which I think says it all. The words they give you are theirs. The words you choose are yours. The labels society hands out, they're full of history, baggage, and bias. But the words you choose for yourself, that's about you. That's about your reality, your dignity, and your fundamental power to write your own story.